Well, everyone, it is currently 2 o'clock here, Eastern Standard Time. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to those who are located or on the western side. My name is Andrew Zapfel, and I'm a manager for health equity here at NASTAD. I will be moderating today's session. I see that a few people are still joining in, so we're going to give everyone just another minute or two to get situated. I do ask if you can please make sure to mute your lines before we get started. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, and we'll begin momentarily. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us today on innovative approaches to social media and the HIV response. As I noted earlier, my name is Andrew Zapfel, and I'm a manager for health equity here at NASTAD. We appreciate all of our colleagues joining today and look forward to a great conversation on ways that we can be using social media platforms to benefit and strengthen our response. Before we get started, just want to share some quick information on housekeeping. Please mute your computer, microphone, or telephone during the presentations. We do have a chat feature located at the bottom of our GoToWebinar feature, where you can ask any questions during the presentation. We will read them out during our question and answer sessions, as well as we'll give time at the end and during the presentation as well to have time for some Q&A. A recording of the webinar and slides will be made available later on after the presentation. And if you have any additional questions or need additional information, feel free to reach out to myself at the email that is seen on the screen. I'm also going to share our agenda for today. Today, we will first take a look at an exciting new offering of NASTAD's technical assistance focused on social media strategic planning. We will then have two colleagues talk about the ways they use social media in the HIV response and lessons learned or tools for all that are listening to implement as we move forward. We'll then have time for discussion and any questions that you might have for our panelists. As noted, again, my name is Andrew Zapfel. I'm featured on the left. Our panelists today include Jennifer Hecht and Rochelle Rich. Jennifer Hecht, with the Building Healthy Online Communities and San Francisco AIDS Foundation, has over 20 years of experience in the fields of sexual health and substance use, having worked in syringe access, HIV prevention outreach, and community health clinics. Her work includes program development, evaluation, and community-based research. She has been a co-principal investigator and co-investigator for research projects regarding structural interventions in bars and online, and is a co-founder of the Building Healthy Online Communities Coalition. She also works at the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, where she leads program strategy and evaluation. Rochelle Rich is the Women's HIV Prevention Coordinator at the Georgia Department of Public Health. Rochelle received a bachelor's in health education from the University of Florida, which I am now told to say go Gators, and has spent the last 12 years employed as a public health servant. As the Women's HIV Prevention Coordinator, Rochelle is working to reduce the number of women newly diagnosed with HIV and ensuring HIV-positive women receive quality health care and the supportive services they need to alleviate the impact that daily life stressors may have on their health. We want to thank again our two panelists for agreeing to speak today. I also want to take a moment to thank my colleagues Angela Johnson and Megan Samuel at NASTAD for the technical support in the development and implementation of this webinar. NASTAD's social media training, as I mentioned earlier, is something new that we're excited to offer as part of our technical assistance to health departments across the country. NASTAD social media training is a 2-day training, although also adaptable, that walks people through the multitude of social media platforms out there, including Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, to including dating apps specific to different populations, including gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men, such as the use of platforms such as, for example, Grindr, and talks about how health departments can be best using them to further their efforts in HIV prevention and outreach. We define social media as websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. And we define social networking as people finding others with similar interests, or for example, likes on Facebook, or interests that they can then share with others through either online or in person. Social media continues to be a relevant tool for health departments in their work around health communications, yet health departments have faced challenges, as well as other platforms, including community-based organizations, in effectively using social media, how to strategically plan for the use of social media, and resources to effectively implement. And specifically talking around health communications, we know that from work done by CDC, that health communications really works to increase audience knowledge and awareness of a health issue, influence behaviors and attitudes towards a health issue, demonstrate healthy practices, demonstrate the benefits of behavior change to public health outcomes, advocate a position on a health issue or policy, increase demand or support of health services, argue against misconceptions about health or stigma, and more. We know that health communication is incredibly important in the HIV response, and social media is a tool to help achieve the work that we are trying to do. So speaking a bit more about NASTAD social media training, the training walks through concepts around social media and health communications. It discusses ways that we want to approach developing social media messages using empathy, community leaders, and motivational best practices. It includes tips and tricks on how to be relevant and gain traction to your post by using current trends or news items. We also include ways you can be evaluating the work you're doing online or through social media using tools and metrics that are available to you. It includes practices on how to strategically plan for and use social media to promote events, services, or just generally the work that you're doing in trying to reach different populations. NASTAD remains committed to supporting health departments and the broader community in this endeavor, and is happy to tailor our approach or this training and the many different topics included in it to the work that you are trying to do. If you have any additional questions, again, my contact information is available at the beginning as well as at the end of this slide deck, and I'd be happy to talk more about ways that we can support your efforts in using social media to advance your causes. With that, I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Jen Hecht at the Building Healthy Online Communities, to showcase some of their work and the tools that they are currently using, as well as sharing with others. So Jennifer, go ahead.
Oh, here we go. I was just unmuting myself. Sorry for the delay there. Thank you, Andrew, and thanks for the introduction. Good morning to everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're sitting. So I'm here to talk about building healthy online communities, to share a bit about what we do and share some resources that I'm hoping will be helpful for you. Building healthy online communities is a partnership between public health and dating apps that's focused on improving the sexual health outcomes of the app users. So this presentation is related to social media, but we'll also focus on a number of topics that kind of touch social media. Andrew, if you could advance the slide. Thank you. We have three primary goals for our work at BHOC. First, and most important, is to advocate for changes in the environment of the apps. And what we mean by that is, for example, to changes to profile options or other features that can achieve permanent solutions that promote public health and reduce stigma. We also work to coordinate and improve messaging and advertising related to sexual health information and awareness and access to sexual health services on the apps. And then finally, for us to succeed in these endeavors, we really work to coordinate our interactions with the apps and to reduce the number of requests that they receive from public health and assist them in prioritizing their efforts for the greatest impact. Next slide, please. So you can see here our partnerships. We have a growing number of public health and academic partnerships to further this work. And next slide. On the app side, we also have quite a number of different partnerships. And the way we look at this is really to try to get the biggest bang for our buck with our partnerships. So we're partnering with most, but not all of the biggest sites. And according to our data, those sites include Grindr, Scruff, Tinder, Adam for Adam, Jacked, Growler, and Hornet. But you may notice that we also partner with a few of the smaller sites. So these have been selected because they're interested in piloting new ideas, which we hope to implement and sort of work on understanding proof of concept of different ideas. But really, in order to reach the vast majority of gay or queer male app users, we need really only partner with a few largest apps, as many users are on more than one app. Next slide. So to help shape our activities and priorities, we've consistently gathered input from a number of our different stakeholders, including the app owners, the app users, and also public health folks. So whether we're doing our own survey or adding questions onto existing surveys. For the last couple of years, we've added questions to the American Men's Internet Survey, as well as gathered our own input in partnership with University of Washington on partner notification. So here you can see feedback that we got from some questions that we added to AMIS, the American Men's Internet Survey. We asked users, people who reported that they used dating apps, what kinds of sexual health features they wanted. And what we found was that the features that were most supported were alerts about local disease outbreaks, being able to order a home HIV test kit, being able to track information about their partners, and being able to order free condoms. In addition, you can see that ideas such as HIV test reminders and partner notification were supported by at least the majority of users. And importantly, we also asked which features users might not want. And you can see that's indicated here by the gray bar. And you can see very few folks actually didn't want these features. So in addition to helping us prioritize our activities, this data also strengthens our communications with and our requests to owners, since we can demonstrate that their users support these new features. Next slide, please. So an example here is Grindr. We were actually able to work with Grindr over a number of years to integrate options to include HIV status and sexual health strategy into their profile features. While this is completely optional, it is important to be able to increase clear communication and reduce sexual risk. And Grindr had chosen the option to include both HIV status and sexual health strategy together, as you can see here with the negative on PrEP as an option. Next slide. So a number of the apps also have information available through FAQs or other sections of their apps that can be a great way of getting information to our priority populations. We've worked with a number of the apps to make sure that the information is accurate, is brief, and enables users to be able to access resources. Next slide. And here you can see an example of the option to opt in for sexual health test reminders through this Grindr feature. Next slide. And here is an example of how a different app has chosen to include HIV status and sexual health strategy. In this case, they decoupled it, which kind of gives a little bit more flexibility. But each app is really designed differently and has different preferences for how they're going to implement these features. Next slide. So we're also working on a number of projects related to home testing and partner services. Next slide. Currently, home test kits are only offered in a few jurisdictions, but the apps that we work with work on a national and, in most cases, global scale. So what we're hoping to do is to be able to create a national level resource that we can work with the apps on to enable users of the apps to easily access home test kits. So we know that there are a large proportion of MSM who are using the apps, and quite a number of them, approximately 50%, haven't had a test in the past year. Most, nearly all, are sexually active. And so we really want to leverage this opportunity to make it easier for folks who haven't tested recently to be able to access home test kits. And it's definitely essential in this project that we would not be trying to replace clinic-based testing with home-based testing, because we know the technology is superior in clinics, but we do want to be able to reach folks who wouldn't otherwise get tested. Next slide. So I'm going to talk briefly about partner services on the apps. I'm imagining that many of you either work with DIS or know about the work that DIS do. The people are using the apps as a mechanism to reach partners of folks who come in and test positive. And all of the apps have different rules about how public health can engage on their app. So here you can see Grindr, they have kind of this rule, don't ask and don't tell really. You're likely to get kicked off, and in that case you have to start again. It's not really a best practice, but that's sort of the situation. Scruff essentially operates the same way, whereas Adam for Adam is actually much more welcoming to public health and says, yes, you can do this work here. Next slide. So we worked with YTH to help create a new resource that enables individuals to let their partners know they may have been exposed to an STI. We're working with the apps so that they can link directly this resource, tellyourpartner.org, from the app. But we also recognize that this is a resource that might be used in clinic-based settings or to enhance DIS work. So essentially what this resource does is enable someone to go on this website, choose to send either an email or a text to anonymously let their partner know that they might have been exposed to an STI. They can choose which STI. They can enter up to 6 partners, and then that partner will get a text or an email encouraging them to get an HIV or an STI test. Next slide, please.
My apologies, didn't realize the information had a link to the site. Next slide.
No. Yeah, I included. So this is just what it looks like for you to select the different STIs and to enter, in this case, their phone number if you're sending a text. Thanks, Andrew, for doing the slides.
No worries.
You can advance the next one. So Toolkit Simulator is a way for DIS to train on how to do internet partner services. So they have a chance to kind of mock through a number of different scenarios as if they were on the app trying to reach out to different partners. Next slide. And we've been partnering very closely with both Frank Strona and Rachel Kutcher at CDC, who are the experts in internet partner services. They have quite a number of different resources, and I certainly encourage you to check out some of these resources to learn more about how you can do internet partner services online and or through the apps. Next slide, please. So bhocpartners.org is our main website, and I just want to let you know of it as a resource that enables you to find best practices. We have a clearinghouse of social marketing or ads that can be used on social media, as well as a comprehensive compendium of safer sex articles. Next slide. And we're working with a number of different partners to figure out how to best spend our resources when buying ads on the dating apps or on Facebook or other online outlets. And we're building out, as I mentioned, a clearinghouse of social marketing resources so that jurisdictions, for example, don't have to recreate the wheel and create a new social marketing campaign if there's one that's available that they can use. We certainly encourage pre-testing in their, in the jurisdiction to make sure that the campaign, if it was created elsewhere, is relevant. But certainly we know that the cost of developing a campaign can be prohibitively expensive. And these are resources that can really be used in other jurisdictions. Next slide. So one question we're asked all the time is where folks should advertise, especially if they're trying to reach a specific population. So the answer is complicated. And I don't know that buying directly from the apps is always the best solution. In fact, sometimes putting ads on Facebook, Instagram, other forms of social media can actually work more effectively than buying directly through the dating apps. However, if you are buying through the dating apps, the largest proportion of MSM using the apps, Grindr would come first, then Scruff, Tinder, and Adam for Adam. If, for example, you were already buying ads on Grindr and you wanted to know where else should I buy the ads, the answer would be Adam for Adam or Scruff. And specifically, if you're trying to reach African Americans, you would go to Grindr first. The volume there is the biggest, followed by Jacked, Adam for Adam, and Tinder, and likewise for Latinx folks, same information. Next slide. So these are some PSAs that are available. They've been developed in partnership between BHOC and Daddy Hunt. You can see there's 12 different PSAs on a variety of different topics. These can be found on bhocpartners.org, and they are free and available to any of you. Please use them. There's quite a number of different topics, and we encourage you to check them out. Next slide. So that wraps up a brief overview of the BHOC activities and resources, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. I think we have time for a few questions. A reminder, if you have a question, feel free. If you're using your computer, there is a hand feature. You can click to raise your hand. I can then unmute you. Or if you would prefer to submit your question via the chat feature, feel free to use that as well. I'll give now a minute or two to see if there are any questions from the audience. Just as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. We will be sharing slides as well as the audio from this soon to all those who have registered. While we wait for a question, Jen, would you be talking a little bit more about your partnership with Daddy Hunt and the video series you created? I know that it was quite an interesting undertaking, and definitely talk a bit more about like holistic care and relationships among gay, bisexual men. Do you want to talk a bit briefly about this relationship and how people can check out that broader?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Andrew mentioned, BHOC partnered with Daddy Hunt, and I will say that Dan, the co-founder and current director of BHOC, absolutely led this. He did an amazing job. The Daddy Hunt had previously created what was called a web serial, so basically some videos that were a few minutes in length, a series of videos, and it was done for promotional purposes. They really wanted to get the word out about Daddy Hunt and to encourage people to download their app. And there were sort of a fun romantic stories. Because we had a great relationship with Daddy Hunt and talked about a number of different opportunities for partnership, they came to an agreement that what they would do is in the next serial, they would incorporate script that included some questions about sexual health, condom use, PrEP, etc. And so both the second and the third serials were partnerships between Daddy Hunt and BHOC. Those can be found, again, on our BHOC partners as well as through YouTube. We've had millions of views of these over a number of months, and highly encourage folks to check them out. And then, as you'll notice, the folks who developed the actors for the PSAs were all the actors from the serial. So we had professional actors who were able to create those PSAs for us.
Great, Jen, thank you. And it seems like we actually have quite a few questions now for you, so I'll read them to you. Okay. I'll try to put a few of them together. I think the first question is, are these apps equally popular among those populations across the country, or do you see a bit of a regional difference in the use of Grindr, Scruff, Adam for Adam? And then also kind of going alongside that, one health department has had an issue getting Tinder to accept ads. Are you aware of any issues with that, or have you been working with Tinder?
Excellent questions. So first off, in terms of regional differences, yes, there are regional differences, and we literally just in the last couple of weeks have spent quite a bit of time looking at that data. The bottom line is that Grindr has the market share in every region. So really, it's still the place that I would direct people. I promise you I do not work for Grindr. It is really just that is what the data says. From the standpoint, we're digging further into it, but I will say that at this point, that's just the bottom line. In regards to Tinder, we have been attempting to reach out to them for close to 2 years. If anyone has a contact at Tinder, we would love to know that. I believe that we're kind of making a little bit of progress on that front, but ultimately, as Tinder is not specifically queer, there are a lot of queer folks who are using Tinder, but because it is a predominantly heterosexual app, They just have shown very little interest in working with us. Um, Connecting on sexual health topics. So we will continue to advocate on that front, but I'm not surprised to hear that. And if the person who wrote in that question would like to reach out to me directly, please feel free.
Great. So next two kind of questions we have. There's a bit of an echo at them. Jen, could you mute your line while I ask the question? Thanks. Is that better? Great. Okay. So the next two questions, Jen, are related a bit. Are you aware of any clinics or jurisdictions that are using tellyourpartner.org? Or do you have a sense of how that's going for them? And the next question is, is there any discussions around uploading test results onto dating apps?
All right, great questions. First of all, we launched Tell Your Partner approximately 1 month ago. So we are brand new. We haven't even done our formal press release. This is just an opportunity to let you know about a resource. We anticipate having a press release relatively soon. So I cannot tell you about how it's being used yet in clinics, though I am working with our own staff here at San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and they're very eager to implement it within our sexual health clinic called Magnet. We've also had interest from quite a number of different jurisdictions that we've had communications with through NASDAD and through NCSD. So I anticipate that will pick up quite a bit over the next several months. But as I said, since we've just launched and we haven't yet put out the press release, I think lots of folks don't even know about it as a resource. And if folks do want to start using it, please, again, happy to take any feedback on that. The second question, Andrew, can you remind me again? I'm sorry.
Question is focused on how discussions around uploading test results on dating apps.
Right, thank you. So this is a complicated one. I think there's a number of different private companies that are working on various different ways that people can share their test results. At this point, there's nothing yet that I would completely endorse. And I don't know that I anticipate that any of the dating apps will go in that direction. However, we are working on features that relate to that. So for example, enabling individuals to be able to track information about their partners so that if they wanted to reach out to them again, they could. I think this is an interesting direction that we'll see what's going to happen in the next year or two.
Great, thank you, Jen. I think the last question we have is from Barry Callis, talking about box number 3, which I think is talking about BHOC's, 3 areas that you work in, interfacing with social media outlets. So maybe just talk a little bit about your relationship with the social media outlets, and maybe if you have any tips for health departments or organizations who are looking to maybe have these partnerships, and concluding thoughts on that.
Great. So our focus has largely been the dating apps and not the larger social media, for example, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. However, it's very clear that especially when we focus on ad purchases or even outreach and recruitment, that Facebook and some of these other mechanisms, even like Google Ads, have they have mechanisms to reach the populations we're trying to reach very effectively. And so rather than say, okay, I bought an ad on Grindr, the people on Grindr will see it. If I buy an ad through Facebook, I can set it up such that MSM see it and it will go, it will be, there's different ways to target basically. I can also buy ads through something called Google Ad Double Click, or what would be called a programmatic ad buy, and that will target the priority populations regardless of what site they're on. It will essentially do the job of finding the places that that target population is on, and that may be Facebook, that may be, you know, different sites that those users might be on, not just the apps themselves. And I think there's a lot of potential advantages to that, and that's something that we're in the process of learning more about ourselves. The one thing I will say in regards to those social media platforms is there are many limitations often around what ads can be, what can be in the ads. So we've certainly had ads flagged on Facebook and through Google, even ads about like a smoking cessation thing that were flagged because they thought it was a tobacco company, for example. So one of the things on our list for sure is also continuing to do some advocacy and education with those platforms around making sure that those ads don't get flagged and can actually get through that process.
Okay, thank you so much, Jen. Good. Okay, great. We're going to move on now to our next presenter. There will be time again at the end of the next session for any additional questions, as well as happy to provide contact information to our speakers as well. So thank you all so much for your questions today. Our next speaker is Rochelle Rich, who is the Women's HIV Prevention Coordinator for the Georgia Department of Public Health. She'll be talking a bit more about her Women Who Prep campaign. Rochelle, please feel free to take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'd like to say thank you to NASTAT and Andrew specifically for this opportunity to share the current activities that the Women's Program is doing here in Georgia. So thank you, Andrew. I thought it'd be helpful to provide the audience and provide you all a little background on how I got to the point of hosting the PrEP Summits. Right now, Georgia is currently in year 2 of our women's program. So everything that I'm working on is brand new, and I'm testing it out. I'm learning as I'm going while I'm doing this. So when I came here in 2017, one of the first things that I did was to
Oops. Rochelle, I think you are self-muted right now.
Sorry.
There you go.
Right. So these 4 goals here outline the overall goal of the women's program here in Georgia. These are currently in line with the goals, the mission, and vision of the Office HIV/AIDS program here, but it's really targeting African American women and Latino women here in Georgia, and these 2 groups bear the greatest burden of disease here in Georgia. So just really quickly, if we look at, let's go back. If we look, sorry, Angie, I'm trying to go back. Yes. So if we just look at the general female and woman profile here in Georgia, we have about a little over 5.4 million women. This diagram here just kind of breaks that down by race. As you can see, 50% of the state we have for Caucasian and white women, 33% for Black women, smaller percent for Latino women at 9%, even smaller numbers when we go down to our American Indian and our Pacific Islander groups. But then when we look at, I'll let you control this, Andy. For some reason, it was working earlier, but it's not working now.
No worries. Happy to do so.
Thanks. So then we look at the HIV diagnoses, we see that 74% of that resonate for Black women here in Georgia. And overwhelmingly, women are infected through heterosexual contact. So I knew these numbers going into drafting the strategic plan, knowing that I was going to really have to target Black women and Latino women, and really focusing on heterosexual contact, the heterosexual relationships. So just like the national statistics, Georgia's is mirroring what we're seeing on a national level. So many of the activities are really designed for Black women here in Georgia and Latino women. So with that in mind, I wanted to really get an idea of what the women of the community felt in regards to HIV in general. And so I decided to host next slide, please, Andrew. I decided to host what I call What's the Thesis. These were community focus groups. I held 7 of these focus groups around the state of Georgia, really focusing on areas that had the highest numbers of new infections to have these focus groups. So I partnered with community-based organizations and even health district staff in those areas to bring in women of the community and do these groups. And the groups were conducted based on sero status. So I had, I believe I did, it was 4 HIV negative groups and 3 HIV positive groups, and mostly attended by Black women in the community. And all of the information that I received from these focus groups really helped inform my program activities and the things that I wrote into the strategic plan. These groups were extremely informal sessions. It was set up more like a girl chat. Just tell me how you feel. Give me your, as specific as you possibly can be as far as details about your community in itself, and how you feel about your health departments. How do you feel about HIV in general? How do you think that Black women are experiencing HIV in your area? These are really important for me. And I also really wanted to know what the women of the community wanted to see as far as prevention activities go. So, they mentioned health fairs, they mentioned seminars, they mentioned actually hosting groups, kind of like what those focus groups were, just a really informal way for the women to have a candid conversation about sex and relationships and HIV prevention or PrEP in itself. And they really wanted these to be interactive sessions. They wanted it to be, or they liked the interactiveness of the focus groups, but they wanted to see that expand beyond in more community settings involving more women. So I used that information to really guide how I structured the focus groups. Next slide. So these are some of the questions that I posed when it came to what online sites or what methods that the women think would be the most effective in reaching their communities in their different areas. So I asked, how do you normally get information you need about HIV prevention? Overwhelmingly, the women responded they use online sites, they use social media platforms, TV, and family and friends. They also talked about, I also asked them, what would be what are the best ways to promote PrEP to women in your area? Number 1 recommendation was using social media advertisements, using TV commercials, having the messages that I may create or draft supported by celebrities, and also being able to hear these things on radio. The radio stations that they listen to were going to be very helpful. One of the things that was very obvious in my focus groups were that Black women just were not aware of PrEP as an option for themselves, but many of them would be interested in utilizing PrEP if they heard more about it. And so when I asked that question, if you knew that there was a pill that could prevent HIV infection, would you take it? So 77% of the respondents said, yes, we would take it if we know a little bit more about it. Next slide, please. So this is where the Ladies Who PrEP Summits came from, those focus groups. These summits have 3 initial goals: to increase PrEP awareness and understanding of HIV among women, empowering women with knowledge, and also increasing women's confidence and skills to negotiate conversations around PrEP. And that expands just beyond, to their providers, but to their partners as well. So having some pieces where we talk about sexual negotiation and being able to have actual maybe like role plays or opportunity for that to happen during those PrEP summits is actually one of the highlights of the day. We have an awesome speaker that addresses that. But so those are the main goals of them. I also include the celebrity guest appearances, and I use the celebrities in a twofold way. So I use them, one, to kind of bring the PrEP message to a broader audience by utilizing their platform to talk about it, talk about the health event as, on their social media platforms. And it also kind of helps me attract people who may not normally want to participate in HIV prevention activities, but knowing that, this person that they follow or admire, on Instagram or Facebook is interested in the topic. It actually helps bring in those type of community members. And these summits really, they're not the typical health fair or, I've worked as a DIS and I've worked in health departments for like the last 12 years. So across the board, I know what it is to show up. Just do a community fair. We're just handing out pamphlets behind a table, and it's in some community center. The summits really aren't like that. I really work and make sure that we're creating a safe space for the women, that the ambiance in the room is right. So I have an event decorator that I bring in to transform the space. The attendees get food and beverages, really nice food and beverages. They have the opportunity to interact with the celebrity guests, by taking pictures and having that one-on-one time with them. So it goes a little bit beyond just what you typically would think when it comes to just the health event or health fair. I actually work with a promoter. He's a branding marketer here in Atlanta. He's entrenched into the entertainment business, and so he's very keen on knowing who's popular in the areas that we're going to, regarding who's hot on social media, which platforms are hot on, what their feel is, what the rapport is with the community. So it's really important to have him in. He is responsible for securing the talent, and but he's also responsible for promoting those events, for promoting the events. So let's go to the next slide, Andrew. So you can see here, these are some flyers that we have for the 2 summits that I've held so far. Our first one was here in Atlanta, and that's on the right-hand side. And then I just came back from Savannah. We had our most recent one on April 13th in Savannah, Georgia, where we had Cynthia Bailey host that one for us. But that branding marketer that I work with, he's responsible for creating these flyers, making sure that we're promoting them on the social media platforms that are applicable or for Black women. It's one thing I also want to note is that it's how important radio is, and how important radio is to Black women. If you look at the image there where it's broken down by age groups for Black women and popularity for radio offers a dominant reach when you're trying to reach Black women. It's a really effective medium. So if you look at these numbers, about 92% of Black women are listening to radio on a weekly basis. They're also listening to radio more than non-Hispanic white women. And so they're actually listening to mostly urban contemporary radio genres, and that's if you're looking to reach like the Black millennial women, so that's 18 to 34. If you're looking to just reach women, Black women who are 18 and over, you'll see radio stations that have more urban adult contemporary genre. You can get a broader range. But so radio is really important, and because of that, I have on those flyers you'll see in the top corners. These are the hosts of my events. So we secure radio hosts, women who are currently on air in the areas that that the summits are held in. Here in Atlanta, we have Portia Fox. She's well known in the Atlanta area. She has her morning show here. And in Savannah, we use a radio host, K. Michelle. She has her own midday show. And so I kind of get like a 2-for-1 type of thing when I'm using the radio host. As my host for the event, they are able to promote the event on their show, and they do that very willingly, just for being a part of the summit. In Atlanta, we actually had the opportunity to have our one of our partners go on to the Portia Fox Morning Show and promote the event live, and also just talk about their agency in detail, and as far as in how their agency um, has a PrEP clinic, and go into all of the different resources that they're able to offer the community. So radio has been really helpful. It's been really important for us to participate in it. So, and moving forward, I'm pretty sure most of our hosts will aim to have them be radio personalities in the communities. So if we go, next slide, please.
Sure. I just want to just a note, the next two slides do have sound, so it's just anyone who might be listening to headphones, you might want to lower the volume just a little bit as we play the next two videos with sound. So I'll give everyone just 5 seconds to do so. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, you guys. It's your girl, Cynthia Bailey from the Real Housewives of Atlanta, and I am so excited for the Ladies Who Prep event in Savannah at 10 a.m. at the Savannah Riverfront Marriott. Got a whole lot to talk about. Can't wait to see you guys.
Okay. So these are just some examples of how we also use the celebrities themselves to promote our event on their social media platforms. So I'm sharing Cynthia as she's our most recent guest. Cynthia was, she actually created 2 of those short video clips that she posted to her Instagram and Twitter accounts. And on the right-hand side, you see the gift that she actually posted this right after the event was completed. She posted our hashtag, our Ladies Who Prep hashtag from the flower wall that we utilize for pictures taking. And she went ahead and gave us a little shout out at the end of on her social media platforms. So it's not just work on our side, but we actually ask the guests that we partner with to do a little bit of promoting on our social media platforms as well to drive attendance to the events. Next slide, please. So this video here is just it's a short clip from the first event that we did here in Atlanta. So afterwards, the event is we have a photographer and we have a videographer that captures just what's going on throughout the day. He also will get some feedback and some thoughts from attendees at the event. He's put together a little short reel, and this is posted to YouTube for us to be able to use as promotion for our upcoming events as we move forward in planning them. So I just wanted to kind of show you all, it's a short 2-minute video of what happened in Atlanta.
You look amazing, and I am so happy you are here this morning. I'm calling it a party with a purpose. I am Portia Fox from the Portia Fox Morning Show. I've done radio in the state of Georgia since 1998, and I love you. First of all, thank you for being a part of this event today. And as we wait for more ladies to walk through the door, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Women Who Prep 2018. Make some noise.
I'm Connie Smith-Lindsay, and I'm with the Georgia Department of Public Health. I'm here today at the Ladies Who Prep Summit. It was extremely important to be here because what's happening to Black women around HIV infections is something that can be prevented.
Hi, my name is Michelle Allen. I'm with the Georgia Department of Public Health. It means the world for me to be here today at the PrEP Summit. You know why? Because the community needs to know that HIV is preventable. The community needs to know that we can do all that we can to get to zero by working together.
I learned a ton. I got empowered, I got educated, I got uplifted, and I couldn't have asked for a better way to spend my Saturday. I hope that all of you come and check this out next year. Keep yourself informed, keep yourself educated, and fight for your reproductive health because you matter. You are why we are here.
All right. All right, so that was a short clip of what happened in Atlanta. We'll do the same thing for our most recent event here in the most recent one that I held in Savannah, and just really try to utilize it to gain momentum and use it for other marketing and activities and methods for our upcoming summits. And that's it. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm now going to open it up now to discussion. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to write it in the question box. I'm going to open up the control panel now. If you would like to share any of your thoughts, I can also unmute anyone if you just want to raise your hand. But let me open up the question box now. All right. So, let me start here. All right, so the questions to you, Rochelle. These two are kind of together. You know, what's the TCES groups focused on transgender or cis women or both? And with the PrEP Summits sound like a wonderful platform, but they were just wondering where some of the resources came to fund these summits. So one is on, was this open to cis and trans women? And then also around funding for the summits themselves.
Okay, yes, so the focus groups were cis and transgender women. I did 2 trans groups here in Atlanta by partnering with one of our local CBOs that was pretty entrenched into the trans community. They were extremely important in putting together the ideas and concepts of these summits. At the time of the focus groups, we weren't sure where our trans initiatives would be, if it would be in my program, if it would be in a separate program. So the decision was made from leadership that my program would focus a lot on cisgender women, and the information and the data that I was able to collect for the transgender women would be used to create a separate strategic plan and activities for our transgender women here in Georgia. And the resources for these summits actually come from my programming here in Atlanta. So the women's program, we have a budget that I'm able to work within to host and put these summits together. That's gonna cover, the event space, securing the talent, and the speakers that are invited to speak on the summit as well.
Great. Thank you. We actually quite a few questions, so this is exciting. Next 2 questions for you, Rochelle. On average, how many women do you get per year who attend these events and then seek additional information regarding PrEP? So maybe just if you want to talk a little bit about if there's any sort of follow-up or data collected. And for the influencers that you use, did they donate their time or are they compensated for their time?
Okay, so follow-up. Yes, I do collect a pre and post survey for the women who come to the summit. I can't remember, what was the other part of that second question?
No worries. And I'm trying to do questions at once, so definitely. And how many women per year attend these events?
Okay, great. So I'm only in my second summit. I just did my first one in December. We had a little over close to 100 or so, and the same thing with Savannah. Savannah, we had a little over 100 women attend. My goal is to kind of keep them a little small, so I really am only targeting maybe like 100 to 120 people at a time. At this point, I'm not my budget was not going to allow me to expand to do too much over that. So for the remaining 2 that I have scheduled for this year, I'm going to keep it around that same attendance number, about 120 per event as my max. And the talent or the guests that we secure, they are not free. They have a charge, and so so they are paid to do that.
Thank you. And I know you've collected, some general community knowledge around PrEP usage among African American women. And is there plans to see how PrEP increases among this community post these summits, or kind of is that the hope for as you move forward on this activity?
Yes, the hope is definitely to see some uptake in PrEP initiation numbers. So anyone that's interested in that, many of the agencies that are invited to participate are local resources for them, and they're able to either offer on-site PrEP assistance, or they can refer women to their PrEP clinics. So here in Atlanta, we actually had one of our partners was Empowerment Resource Center. They actually have a PrEP clinic that they operate themselves, and they offer free PrEP services to their clients. So they were actually able to enroll women on site if they were interested in getting prescribed PrEP. So at the conclusion of my summit, I will go back to those agencies to see, how many women came in and actually started PrEP. And even if they didn't stay on it, I'm still interested in knowing, what that looked like as far as increasing PrEP utilization amongst African American women here in Georgia. So that is the intent for the end all goal. Yes.
Great, thank you. Looking to see if we've covered all the questions. I see one for Jen. We have here a question on BHOC. Are you currently considering doing national ad buys that local jurisdictions can buy into, or what is thinking around national purchases with using these apps? Might have a technical issue with Jen. All right, we'll come back to Jen to see if there's technical issues, but I will follow up. All of these questions will be also sent to our panelists. And again, if you have any additional questions, my email will be on the next slide once we get to it. But I think, Rochelle, just one more final question here. Maybe we can wrap up is how many people are on your team in order to make this successful?
Okay, so the women's program, it's me. I'm the women's coordinator. So many of the activities are led by myself, but I do have wonderful coworkers who help me on the summit, maybe helping passing out. We do take-home tests. I have take-home tests available for the women that are able to come to the event if they want to know their HIV status. So my coworkers will help on that table for me. My leadership here, our program manager, our deputy director, and our program director are really supportive and helpful in any way that they can be. But it's a really, really small team.
Thank you, and thank you for that answer. But I've worked a lot with Atlanta Department of Health. I know you all are quite incredible. So,
yeah. And I will also say that my community partners that are interested in helping out too. So here in Atlanta, Sister Love and Empowerment Resource Center, they've been helpful as well in structuring these summits with me.
Great, thank you. We are now kind of at the last minute of the session, so apologies if there were any questions we missed. We will follow up with you as well as share these slides. Again, if you have any additional questions or any more thoughts on social media or just want to learn more about what NASDAQ can offer, feel free to reach out to me at the email address that you see on the screen. I want to again thank so much our panelists Jen and Rochelle for really talking about the great work that they are doing, and we really look forward to seeing their programs succeed even more. So again, a a virtual round of applause for our two colleagues. Thank you again. Again, another thanks to my colleagues Angela Johnson and Megan Samuel, who helped with the planning and development of this presentation. We thank you all so much for your attendance, and we look forward to working with you all in the future on social media and how best to implement your HIV programs. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you again so much for your attendance. Thank you.